Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. I hope you're doing well. It is time for my book review of The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Abercrombie is one of my favorite authors. If you know me or been on my channel for a while, you've seen him be mentioned in my top list. I have done, I think, a couple book reviews from Abercrombie. Especially, I did a read-in review of my second time through his YA series, The Shattered Sea trilogy. I also liked his First Law trilogy, his Age of Madness trilogy. Heck, I even liked his standalones in the First Law world. Yes, I am an Abercrombie fan. So it begs the question, did I enjoy The Devils? Stick around. And so The Devils was published in May of 2025 this year, and I had every intention of reading it fairly quickly, but things just didn't happen that way. June on the Range was there, and I wanted to go all in on that reading event, which I did. And then in July, I was prepping, trying to read some other things and prepping for Indie Author August. But I'm glad I waited because it gave me a nice contrast to the Indie Author August reading event. And I decided basically to download it on Audible and listen to it, and I'm glad I did. As I mentioned, Stephen Pacey, the narrator, was absolutely incredible. It is well worth the Audible credit. But nonetheless, I'm glad I did it. But let's talk about the summary of this thing first. Yeah, there's a lot to undertake here. The summary of this, in my estimation, is we're following the main point of view. We're following a lot of different point of views, by the way, but the main one we're following is brother Eduardo Diaz. He is a monk, and he's summoned to the sacred city by Her Holiness, and he is tasked to lead the Chapel of Holy Expediency, which is basically his made-up kind of task team that is filled with monsters, really. You have a necromancer, a vampire, a werewolf, an elf, a cursed knight, and a pirate, and they're all bound by magic. And this magic bindings that they have to kind of follow the course of what is being tasked by them. And Brother Diaz is kind of like the ringleader that keeps him on point. They're trying to escort Alex, who is a female thief who, unbeknownst to her and you as the reader, will get to know is basically the heir to the throne of Troy. And getting her to Troy to be coronated, it has its own perilous adventure, hence the reason why they have this Chapel of Holy Expediency task team to get her there, and it's comprised of monsters, because there's going to be perilous times. There is family members that want to make sure that she doesn't get coronated and whatnot in Troy, and so there's a lot of different conflicts and kind of plot threads that happen, and so along with a lot of dark humor, a lot of language, a lot of cussing throughout this story, there is an immense amount of backstories about characters that you learn, especially the Chapel of Holy Expediency. You learn about these monsters. And so I was really sucked into with these characters as the group kind of continues to navigate through basically shifting loyalties, power struggles, revenge and murder and plotting. The absurdity of their kind of mission is really encapsulated because it's wrapped in the church in medieval England, but at the same time you have sinners and monsters leading to some kind of pinnacle of putting Alex on the throne. And it just kind of is a nice kind of ironical, absurd story, and it works just extremely well. And so let's talk about what works well. As I mentioned, the narration is great. I won't belabor that point, but I do have a funny story to go along with that, because I was listening to it on Audible and I was doing it in August in kind of contrast to some of the Indie Author August stuff I was reading in physical form on Kindle. I listened to a lot of this while I was out in the woods hiking. And as I got into like the last 2/3, as things start to really ramp up, as the story starts really calming, kind of coalescing into the climax, there's a lot that happens. There's some big moments. And I find myself out there in the hike in the middle of the woods, kind of by myself. At least I hope I was when I was doing this. and something would happen during the story in my headphones, and I'd be out there yelling, hell yeah, in the middle of the woods. And it was kind of funny. But yeah, I had a really, really good time listening to this book. It is a very kind of Suicide Squad-esque group of characters, and wow, it's the characters that really give this book its just due. It is definitely heavily in plot, but the characters are what this book is about, and that's something that Abercrombie does really well. He writes enough battles and plot development, but it's really about the characters that you fall in love with and you get immersed in their world. Brother Diaz, this devout monk, he is kind of ill-equipped for political or violent tasks, so he's a very contrasting character when they get into some of the skirmishes, but he is a kind of almost a bookish kind of nerd kind of character, and that does come into pay at the end of the story. Alex, this princess, Pyrogenitus, she's very cunning, a street thief, but she's kind of revealed and she's in a softer tone, and she wants more and wants what's right, especially when she gets closer to the throne of Troy. Jacob of Thorn, probably one of my favorite characters. He's an immortal. He is a knight that is cursed by his oath and haunted by his past and has been in so many different skirmishes. He is just an incredible person. And he dies in the story and then was resurrected because, yeah, he's immortal. Vega, Olstadter, a werewolf, a Viking, a northerner. Unbelievably brutal, surprisingly endearing. Her backstory and the back flashes to her story, incredible. So emotional. Sunny, the stealth moral elf, who has invisibility, a great character. Balthazar Shem Ivan Droxy. He is the necromancer, but don't you call him that. He is a magician, and if you read this, you'll understand what I mean there. But he's just a self-pitying necromancer that has power, but you wouldn't know it. He seems so aloof. Baron Rickard, he is a centuries-old vampire with hypnotic glamour magic. A very interesting character. Just seems to kind of just go with the flow. He just kind of has nothing else better to do, so to speak. And then you have Baptiste, a pragmatic lady pirate, streetwise, resourceful. It's just a very kind of hodgepodge stew of characters that comes into an amazing story. When it comes into excerpts, I could go on and on. In fact, I could probably, and I actually thought about this when I was out hiking in the woods, I could probably do my own video just on the excerpts because there's an incredible amount of them. But here are some of my favorites that I had. Happy endings are just stories that aren't finished yet. It was that one that just really stuck with me. Another one was, this is how it goes. Start the evening looking for fun. In the morning, begging forgiveness. And then lastly, we all see the world through the lens of our own obsessions. And I thought that was very, very fitting. In terms of criticism, I think, my only criticism is, like most Abercrombie stories, you have to kind of ease into it. You have to kind of find your bearings as you're getting started in this thing. But once you're immersed, and there's not really kind of a time or a chapter or a plot point that you find yourself immersed, you just kind of organically, you're just there. And before you know it, you're like, okay, I need to finish another chapter. I want to find out what's going on with this. And you're hooked. That's the only thing I could criticize about this, if I'm being completely honest. It's an incredible book. So let's talk rating and overall. I give it a 4.9. It is almost a perfect book in my estimation. It tells an incredible interwoven story, but it's around kind of the basis of a church. 4.9 ties it with Lonesome Dove and The Count of Monte Cristo as my favorite. Did I just say Count of Monte Cristo? Count of Monte Cristo for my favorite books of 2025 in terms of ratings. This book is incredible. I enjoyed every minute of it. If you are a fan of grim dark, if you tried First Law and you kind of thought it was pretty decent, this is definitely up your alley. If you like other grimdark authors, this is definitely a must read. If you're a fantasy nerd, this is probably something that would be a nice foray into Abercrombie as well. People are like, hey, it's not First Law, and it isn't First Law, but it's just as incredible in my estimation as well. You are warned, though, however, this book gets into some heavy cursing, some situations. Some of the backstories are pretty rough. If you are not into that, that's definitely a trigger warning for you. But wow, what a book, what a story. I cannot go on enough about it. It was an incredible read. I am so glad also that I listened to it on Audible. Stephen Pasty was chef's kiss in terms of narration. He was fantastic. And that's my review, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, 4.9 out of 5. Incredible book. I hope you're doing well. I'll talk to you later.